Welcome to Shastrikara's astrological series. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about do the analysis for the sudden death of the famous Bollywood actor Irfan Ali Khan. He died on 29th April 2020. So, in this presentation, I'm going to take his natal chart using Chandra Lagna, superimpose the transit planets as of 29th April, and then try to find out what is the astrological reason for this event to happen. I hope you will enjoy this video and learn something from my presentation. Thank you. Earlier there were three presentations that I had done in regard to the sudden death analysis. I provided three examples, and I just came to know recently that the famous Bollywood star Irfan Ali Khan died suddenly on 29th April to 2020, and since I don't know the time of birth, I took as usual the date of birth and the place of birth, generated the chart using Jehora, and then using Chandra Lagna, and then the transit planets on the time date of his death. I analyzed, superimposed the transit planets on the natal chart, and then using Chandra Lagna, I analyzed what could be the possible astrological reasons, justifications, or reasons for the event to happen. This presentation, I'm doing it for educational purposes only. I'm very sorry to hear such a great guy. I'm fan of his actions. I like his actions. I watched most of his movies, and it's a shock to me to hear about his death, and I'm just doing it for educational purposes only. Please do not take it in any other manner, and thank you very much for watching this video. Irfan Ali Khan was born on 7th January 1961, and on 29th April 2020 he died in a Mumbai hospital. And we were being told, I read it through on internet and in various newspapers, it was being told that his cause of death was colitis. Colitis is a chronic digestive disease, and this tells you that the native has died due to a disease that was incurable, cannot be cured, and the death was partially due to the sixth house, which is Rogasthanamo, and a planet that has so much of uncertainty, which is Rahu. So as soon as I saw this news, and when I saw Rahu in the sixth house from the natal moon, I could guess that this might be the reason for his death. And let me go in detail and analyze his birth chart from Chandra Lagna, and then superimpose the planets as of 29th April 2020 and figure it out more in detail. Okay, now let's start looking at his birth chart. Date of birth as 7th January 1967, and since we don't know the time of birth, let's start looking at it from Chandra Lagna. Moon is in Scorpio, so that is the Lagna or the first house. So for Scorpio, the Lagnadipati or the first house lord is Mars, and then Mars also owns the sixth house. So the Lagnadipati is owning the first house and the Rogasthanamo. Lagnadipati and Rogasthanadipati are the same. So this tells you that the role of Mars when it comes to the end of life. Okay, so this is the first step. And then, since we are talking about doing the analysis for the sudden death or end of life, we have to look at the most important houses like the Marakasthanamos, second house, the 7th house, and the 12th house, Mrityusthanamo, the 8th house, and as usual the Rogasthanamo, the 6th house. Now let's start with the second house. The second house from natal moon, second house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter is in the which house? Jupiter is in the ninth house, that's okay. And then the planets residing in the second house are Sun and Mercury. Sun is the 10th house lord, so that's okay. But look at Mercury. Mercury is the 8th house lord, so the Mrityusthanadipati and also the 11th house. Okay, the Mrityusthanadipati, the Mercury is residing in the Marakasthanamu. So whenever this Mrityusthanadipati gets activated or some sort of a malefic affliction happens, that's when the possibility for end of life can occur. The next one what we need to see is the 7th house. 6th house. The 6th house lord is Mars and Rahu is residing there. As soon as you see Rahu in the 6th house, it tells you that whatever the diseases that the native is going to have will be either unknown or known but cannot be cured. One of these two will be there. And then comes the 7th house. The 7th house lord is Venus. Fortunately, the 7th house is empty. The 8th house. 8th house lord is Mercury. Fortunately, 8th house is also empty. Then the 12th house. The 12th house lord is Venus again. So the 7th house, Marakasthanadipati, is Venus, and the Mokshasthanadipati, or the planet that decides the end of life, is also Venus. So Venus plays a very vital role here for this native when we are trying to figure out the possibility for end of life. And the planet residing in the 12th house is Ketu. That means 6th house, Rahu from the 6th house is now looking at the 12th house, the end of life, Mokshasthanamu, that's owned by Venus. This is what when you look at the chart, the natal chart from Chandra Lagna, what you can summarize is that Venus plays a very important role here because the 7th and 12th house lords, and then Mercury is the 8th house lord residing in the 2nd house. So these Venus and Mercury, while it decides when the end of life event is going to happen, Mars and Rahu are the ones who are going to decide. There's no need to say decide. They are the ones who confirmed that the end of life will be due to a disease that is unknown or known but cannot be cured. Now let's go and look at the transit planets. Where are the transit planets residing? That means in which houses are they residing from Chandra Lagna, from natal moon. We'll start as usual. In the first house, there isn't any transit planet on 29th April 2020. So in the second house, no transit planet is there. Then we go all the way to the 6th house. You have transit sun is residing there. Yes, in the month of April, sun will always be there, and sun is exalted there. So yep, the exalted sun is residing. Sun is the 10th house lord. That's okay, that's another thing. But unfortunately, sun is co-joined with the 6th house lord, with the Rahu in the 6th house. So that's one thing we need to keep in mind. And then comes the 7th house. In 7th house, you have transit Venus entered the 7th house. Remember, Venus is the lord of the 7th and 12th houses, and that means the 7th house is from Marakasthanadipati and Mokshasthanadipati, the guy Venus. The transit Venus is now in its own house. The 7th house became very, very strong here. And when anything is in the 7th house, you will have a direct aspect from natal moon. So moon is the Lagna. Since we are looking from Chandra Lagna, so the first house, the Tanusthanam, the native, will have some impact that has a direct relationship with the 7th house and Venus planet. Then comes the 8th house. Who is in the 8th house? Transit Rahu is still in the 8th house. Remember, Rahu will be in this 8th house, all Gemini, all the way till September 2020. So in 6th house you have natal Rahu. In the 8th house you have transit Rahu. And fortunately in the 12th house nothing is there. So the question comes is, why now? And one more, there are three other transit planets that we have to talk about, is Saturn, Mars and Jupiter. All these three are in the 3rd house from natal moon. So these three are there for a long time. Transit Saturn, transit Mars and transit Jupiter are there for a long time, and having a direct aspect on transit Rahu for a long time, almost since January 2020, and this is April. So Why didn't it happen in all these 4 months? So the question comes is, who is the most important, which is the important transit planet that made this event to happen? First, like I said earlier, it is the Venus. We have to keep an eye on Venus and Mercury. Remember, I told you earlier that it's Venus and Mercury that who are the ones who decide when the NATO will, the end of event happens for this particular NATO. Now transit Venus is in the 7th house. It just entered the 7th house. I think somewhere in 15th or 16th of April, somewhere in the second week of April or third week of April, transit Venus entered the 7th house from natal moon, its own house. So Venus became very active here. Now only thing that it is waiting for the event to happen is Sun. When Sun was in pieces, it could have happened it, which we don't know whether it happened or not. But once Sun entered Aries, where it got exalted, remember it got exalted in the 6th house, and the question comes is, why am I putting so much emphasis on the Sun? I will tell you why I'm putting emphasis on Sun, natal Sun and transit natal Venus too at the same time. Natal Sun is in the 2nd house, Mrityusthanamo, and it has co-joined with the Mrityusthanadipati 8th house. Marakasthanamo is in the 2nd house, co-joined with Marakasthanadipati. Okay, and then we have what you call natal Sun and natal Mercury are having a direct aspect on the 8th house. So there's nothing more to talk about. It's like it's clearly visible here that Mercury and Sun are having a direct aspect on transit Rahu in the 8th house, and transit Sun is co-joined, exalted transit Sun is co-joined with natal Rahu in the 6th house, and transit Venus is in its own house in the 7th house. So naturally, these events, the Mercury and Venus have decided coming into this constellation or to this rasis has made this event end of life for this particular NATO to happen. Let's now start looking at the transit planets aspects, like which houses does these important transit planets are aspecting. I'll start with the 2nd house. Transit Rahu residing in the 8th house is going to have a direct aspect on the 2nd house. Okay, on the 2nd house. Then the 6th house, Mars. If you look at Mars, transit Mars is in 3rd house. So from 3rd house, if you look at it, the 4th aspect, 1 2 3 4, the 4th aspect of transit Mars is on the 6th house, its own house, the house it owns, where natal Rahu is residing and the exalted transit Sun is residing. Then the 7th house, the 7th house from what you call natal moon, Jupiter, transit Jupiter's 5th aspect is on the 7th house. You can ask why are we looking at Jupiter at this point? Jupiter is the 2nd house lord. Marakasthanadipati is Jupiter. So transit Jupiter is in the 3rd house, co-joined with the 7th house. Being the 2nd house lord, it co-joined with the 7th house lord natal Venus. It co-joined with transit Saturn. It co-joined with transit Mars. Mars is the 6th house lord, 1st and 6th house lord. Transit Saturn is just the 4th house lord, 3rd and 4th house lords. Okay, so the Jupiter's 5th aspect is on the 7th house. 2nd house lord is looking at the 7th house. Next comes the 8th house. From moon, the 2nd house, in the 2nd house you have Sun and Mercury, and Mercury is the 8th house lord. So from 2nd house, the 8th house lord is residing in Marakasthanamo and having a direct aspect on Mrityusthanamo, and it owns that house too. So Sun and Mercury are having a direct aspect on the 8th house, where transit Rahu is now residing. And then comes the 11th house. The reason why I took the 11th house is because you see natal Mars residing. Remember, Mars is the 1st and 6th house lord. So the natal Mars is residing in the 11th house, and transit Jupiter's 9th aspect. So 9th aspect 7. The 7 8, 9. The ninth aspect is on the 11th house where natal Mars is residing. And this, except apart from a transit sun is having a direct aspect on the 12th house, and that's all we have it over here. And the next thing I want to tell you is the transit Jupiter, transit Saturn, and transit Mars residing in Capricorn are having a direct aspect on Cancer, where your second house lord natal Jupiter is residing. So when you look at it, the transit planets are looking at some of the natal planets that either that own the second house or the seventh house or the eighth house, the most three, and the first house, the sixth, and the Mars, specifically Mars, because Mars is owning the sixth house too. So this tells you that these transit planets, as soon as they came into that position, into that constellation or in that Rasi, they activated this particular event to happen. Now that I had done the aspects of the transit planets, their positionings and their ownerships, for the on the date that event had happened, I just went and looked at the Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati, who is the cycle ruler and which house is that cycle ruler going to activate. When you look at the Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati, Mars is the cycle ruler. Mars is the first and sixth house lord, Tanusthanadipati and Rogasthanadipati. So that's a very crucial thing to keep in mind. And then comes the question is, what are we going to do with this? This Mars is going to let you know that what is its name? Mars is going to activate the sixth house from its natal position. Yeah, the sixth house from its natal position, and it says sixth house from Lagna. Since we are taking the Chandra Lagna, Mars is going to activate the sixth house from Chandra Lagna, that is its own house. So the sixth house lord is activating its own house. The Rogasthanadipati has activated the Rogasthanamo, and you have transit sun sitting over there, and natal Rahu is sitting over there. When Mars has activated and the event has happened, natal Rahu is sitting there, and transit sun just exalted transit sun just entered that house. So sun, we know that he is in the second house, co-joined with the eighth house lord. So the natal sun had completely got afflicted. So when exalted transit sun entered the sixth house, co-joined with natal Rahu, and Mars activating that house, it tells you that the death or the end of life will be in related to a disease that is known. Disease is known, but we don't have a cure, or a disease that is unknown completely, and something related to that will cause the end of life. This is the analysis based on the Bihuruga Chakra Paddhati for this particular event. Thank you very much for watching this video. In this presentation, I tried my level best to explain from an astrological perspective what is the reasons behind this particular sudden event to happen, and how transit planets play an important role in any event to happen. It's not something that I want to talk about, particularly for a person like Irfan Khan. This is not the topic that I want to talk about, but this is what it is. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thanks a lot.